Hi, I'm Giles Martin. I'm here in Abbey Road Studio 2. I was actually born in 1969 on John Lennon's birthday, which fascinated him. He said to my dad, "No, you're not sort of arsehole he's going to turn out to be." It's funny, growing up as a kid, having a father like George Martin, you can't compare it to anything else. I've never actually swapped dads with anyone. But we didn't necessarily, myself and my sister didn't necessarily grow up in a terribly musical house, apart from, as a kid, I noticed my dad played the piano a lot, and odd people would come back and forth. In fact, when I was a playgroup, they went around the class, and I was about 4 or 5, and they said, what do your parents do for a living? And they, my dad's an accountant, my dad's a lawyer, my dad's a truck driver, whatever. And I said, my dad just sits at home and plays the piano. And it turns out he was writing, I think he was writing the music for Live and Let Die, the film at the time. And there's huge embarrassment amongst my parents. They go, he's not employed, he's got a proper job. And so it wasn't a sort of thing. I think growing up I didn't necessarily grow up in a musical household. It wasn't, I had the privilege of meeting people like Paul McCartney at an early age and meeting, the Beatles at an early age, but they were just friends of my parents. It didn't mean a whole lot to me as a kid. I remember when I became interested in the guitar and became interested in songwriting, Paul did say to me, he was incredibly encouraging. He goes, "That's great, I find it difficult to write songs, and I'm Paul McCartney." So I did have a privileged sort of background as far as that goes. My parents were always very wary of me getting a proper job. I learned to play the guitar, as some people might be able to see, quite badly. But behind my parents' back, it was a thing, don't join the music industry. I'm delighted I did. In fact, I really got involved in music because my dad started to lose his hearing when I was about 16, and he needed a second pair of ears, and he didn't really want to tell people he was losing his hearing, so I became his ears to a certain extent. I'd come in and try and help him. Through that, I would learn off him, and we started working together. And it was actually a great thing because I was needed to a certain extent by him, which is nice as a son and a father working together. At the same time, he was always very good. He never had a sort of "that's my boy" kind of attitude. He was always very receptive to my ideas. And in fact, he's been receptive to people's ideas throughout the whole of his career. And he treated me no differently and was always open to my suggestions, however wrong they may be. And God knows I made lots of wrong ones. So it gave me a chance to learn, and gave me a chance to respect him for what he does and what he's done. I never I was never any good at learning songs off by heart. I mean, I bluffed my way through most things. I've never been terribly accurate at playing anything. I can play a number of things very badly, but I was much more interested in playing for a reason. So as soon as I learned to play the guitar with a friend of mine, we started playing in the underground here, started playing in tube stations. Playing whatever songs we could learn, basically, as you do. And my dad was especially distraught by this. He didn't want, George Martin's son being arrested because it's illegal. At that stage, it was illegal to busk. In fact, the way we played it should have been illegal, but it was illegal to busk. And I then got into playing bands. I formed a band, as you do, and I had a great time. I think playing in a band, learning to play an instrument, learning to play a guitar was the best thing I ever did. And not that I practice the guitar or play it very often now, but it opens so many doors as far as if you're willing to play it to people, if you're willing to bore people with it. It's great, to meet people and chat. It's like a great hobby to have. It's better than video games, for instance. And I think that being in a band taught me more about recording and music, fun enough, than being the son of George Martin did. Because if you're the son of someone, people expect you have this knowledge, which generally you don't have. People think you grew up in recording studios. Of course, I'd spent more time in studios than probably other people are 16, but it's still just a row of buttons. If you're 16, it's still just, a compressor. Of course, I know what a compressor does. I hadn't got a clue for a long time because people expect you to know these things. But if you're in a band, especially as I was in an unsuccessful band, you have a chance to make a whole lot of mistakes and learn stuff. And the hardest thing, not that it's a bad thing, but the hardest thing if you're a son of someone famous or a child of a famous person is you don't get that many chances to make mistakes before people go. People are hoping for the second coming. People are going, he's going to be just like his dad. And if you screw up, you're then the other way. He couldn't get a proper job. And so being in a sort of hidden band gave me a chance to learn. And that's what, music is about evolving. It's about discovering new stuff. It's about learning new songs. It's about learning how things work. It's not about playing the same old things every day, then things become boring. After playing in a band, I carried on playing I always played with people, always like going on tour and playing in pubs and clubs. So I thought it was just great fun. And I started writing jingles, I started writing commercials. I started doing gasoline adverts. That was for France. French gasoline was the peak of my life. And that was when I was at university. And then when I left university, I wanted to become a record producer. I wanted to write music for people and produce people, but I couldn't. I didn't have any, what do? You can't go, I'm the son of George Martin, let me produce you, or give me a job. And so I ended up working in press. And at the same time, I started looking at bands. And funny enough, my dad was he was nervous, I think, of me following in his footsteps at this stage. And I saw a band called My Life Story. They're playing My Life Story. They're playing at the Astoria in London. And I went to go see them play, and I thought they were good. And they had a whole lot of strings, and I did an arrangement of them and produced them. And they released a single that became sort of #1 in Melody Maker and Enemy and the Cool magazines. And someone showed it to my dad and said, look what your son's been up to. And I was just doing it in the evenings, as you do if you're a fan of music and you want to get into music. And that kind of opened doors for me. I left the press job and became a producer. Production engineering is something that you learn stuff all the time with, like any sort of music. I mean, I think for me, starting out and how I am now, if I can work in any form of music, I'm happy. It doesn't matter. It's just, I think I produce more stuff now and remix and mix stuff now, probably because in a way it's what people expect of me, and maybe I'm okay at it. The Love project came from the fact that they needed to do a show. It was George Harrison and Guy Liberté, who's the head of Cirque du Soleil, were friends. And they decided to do a show, and they decided they couldn't have anyone singing Beatles songs a la Mamma Mia. They didn't want, a chorus singing Hey Jude on stage. And I think that's the right decision. And so they approached my dad, and I'd just had quite a lot of success in the UK doing classical stuff at the time. And Apple came to see me, and I sat with my dad and talked to them about it. And I said to them, I could try creating a gig that never happened. And Neil Aspinall, who was the head of Apple, said, I'd love, we talked about, because he was their roadie, we talked about their shows. We talked about, starting off with Long Tall Sally and finishing with Twist and Shout, or, creating the thing. And I said, well, listen, with Pro Tools and digital stuff, I can perhaps create a gig that never happened. So, under complete secrecy, I went upstairs here into a very small room and took some material, and I took at the beginning, the drums from the end, and Get Back, because I realized they're the same tempo, and because I thought I'd start a gig, never happened, with a drum solo going into a song, and started moving things around, and people said mashing up. I always thought it was a bit rude. And then thought, how am I going to start this? And got the piano from A Day in the Life and turned that backwards, because I thought if that makes a good ending, it'll make a good beginning as it sucks into the chord from Hard Day's Night. I just had fun, And my view was, if I can impress my dad doing Beatles stuff, then that's pretty good. As a son, you're always trying to impress your dad, I think, or compete in some way. And it just so happened that it was on Beatles stuff, and I was auditioning for the Beatles. And I really thought that they probably wouldn't like it. I really thought people would think this is a really bad idea. It sounds like a bad idea if you just talk about it. And I then took Within You, Without You and Tomorrow Never Knows and stuck those together, because I thought this will definitely get me fired, if nothing else. And they came and they really liked it. They liked the ideas. And so I ended up becoming the sort of legacy which I kind of fought against for a long time. And here I am now in Abbey Road talking about it. Suddenly became part of it, and I backed up all the catalogue onto Pro Tools and started working on this project, which became Love. I came with my dog Stan and went to my room and started working. We had a list. I worked with the director of the show and my dad. My dad would come in 2 days a week, and I'd play him ideas and we'd work through stuff. So he was kind of producing me doing it. But the bosses were the Beatles, Ringo and Paul, and Olivia Harrison and Yoko Ono, who were representing George and John. And it was important that they liked everything. They had to hear everything before it was passed on anywhere else. And the interesting thing about the Beatles, it's such a protected circle, rightfully so, that if you do something and no one likes it, no one ever hears it. You know, and that's actually quite a good thing for me, because it means I could take risks. You know, occasionally people at Abbey Road were sort of, you know, people who hadn't heard anything, which the majority of people here, didn't like the idea of what we were doing, and didn't like the idea of me coming in and changing. People think it's changing history, but it's not, because I'm not deleting anything. I wasn't, you know, I was just really trying to do something different. And Ringo and Paul would come in. The funny thing is they come and listen to stuff, and they're not allowed to take stuff away either. It's not like you give them a CD. The only chance of them listening to the new mixes we were doing was by coming here and listening to them. And then later, as we got the technology sorted out and secure drives were done, I would go and see Yoko and sit down with her and work through stuff. And it's fascinating. For me, it was fascinating because I have no past with them. You know, I certainly wasn't there at the time. And so it's kind of on an even, I'm way down the pecking order, but it's kind of, I meet on an even keel, as it were. There's no history. I have no, you know, experience of anything they did. So it was quite easy for me just to go, do you like it, or what don't you like about it? And they were very proactive in it, all four of them, you know, the two wives and Ringo and Paul. You know, Paul was the one that would give me the fear, because he's such a good musician. I mean, Ringo's a pretty good musician as well, and they'd you know, they know their stuff and they know their own material. And occasionally, in fact, when we were doing the show, I sat down with Paul and I went through each bit and, you know, played in bits in the theatre, and it was great. It was a great evening. And he goes, you know, he said to me, you know, I'd have to say I really like what you've done, and what you've done has been sympathetic with my music, and I really appreciate that. For me, that was just, you know, the best. But when it came to the opening of the show, at the very beginning, when people walk into the theatre and they're sitting down, I couldn't work out because they wanted Beatles music to play, and someone said, well, why don't you just do another 60 minutes of, and I mean, it took me 2 years to do the 90 minutes. So I decided to get as many Beatles on as I could by taking the vocals off, which is difficult with Beatles stuff because there's so much leakage on the tracks, and just play the backing tracks. So it's like the Beatles are playing, they're backing as you walk in. So you have Dear Prudence with no vocal, you know, you have Should Have Known Better with no vocal, and Penny Lane with no vocal. And the idea was that it would counterpoint Because. When Because starts, it's just vocals. So I'm sitting with Paul, and my dad's there and Paul's there, and Penny Lane's playing in the ceiling of the theatre. And Paul goes, and what's this then? And I went, it's Penny Lane. Because I know it's bloody Penny Lane, but what's it doing in the ceiling? And I said, well, I just thought it'd be an idea to, you know, because they listened to everything. I thought it'd be an idea to maybe put the backing tracks up there. And he's like, oh, okay, you know, I'll have a listen. And it's right there, because it is their music. And, you know, and my dad sometimes, you know, he feels embarrassed because it's not his music, and it certainly isn't mine. It is theirs. There were 4 Beatles, and it was their band, and that was it. There's no 5th Beatle. With music, there's things you'd like to do. I wish I could play things better. You know, I've always thought, you know, it'd be great to really learn how to play the bass properly, or guitar properly, or piano properly. You know, but it's just a question of time. Maybe I'll start watching our video tunes and then become a better musician. But you know, I'd like to, you know, work with, you know, a really good young band. At the same time, I'd love to go and do something like the Love Project with something else, you know, with taking stuff and creating, make people listen to music again. The good thing about Love is people do analyze it, people do listen, and people don't have it on the background, they do actually get into it. And that's why we do music. We do music because we're passionate about it. And so, really, I mean, I'm about to write a television thing, you know, it's a question of writing, producing, and being creative. And anything that lets you do that, you take. And every day, I just can't believe I can do this for a living. You know, I was told by my parents for years it's an impossible job to do for a living, despite coming from my background, because I think maybe when I have kids, I'll be doing the same thing. You know, don't go into music. You know, but you do it because you love it, and if you can get paid for it, it means you don't have to do another job to get in the way as well. So it's fantastic. I would say to anyone learning an instrument, anyone, you know, struggling, because let's face it, we all struggle with instruments all the time, and we struggle with music. is that no matter how hard it is, it's hard for everyone. And that love that you have for it, never let go of it, because you might be trying to learn a song and go, I'm never going to learn this. But the fact of it is, you do learn, and you do move on. And the thing to do is never ever give up. Never ever lose that drive and that feeling you get when you work something out or you hear some great music. Because it's much better than sitting down and watching the telly. I mean, the thing about music is that I think if anyone's toured, I used to tour a lot. You end up kind of working on automatic pilot. And you start amusing yourself with stuff. I was playing bass in a band, and you start playing the same things over and over again. And I was once in Germany, and I used to jump off the stage. And I jumped off the stage, and I had no idea until I left the how far I was jumping. We played the end of the concert, and I jumped off the stage, and there was no crowd there. I mean, let's face it, we weren't that popular, but there was a break before the people. And I launched off the stage, and seeing the band's faces, and they looked at me, I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die in a shit club in Germany. And I dropped about 12 feet. My bass amp almost followed me, because I didn't have wireless or anything. The bass, it was like Wile E. Coyote. My lead unraveled. It was the only thing that kept me alive. And an Ampeg SV200 or they came crashing down afterwards. But yeah, I spent most of my time being laughed at by people. I think it's important. I think it's important in studios to have a good laugh. It's funny, I mean, it's the Beatles. It's one thing that was shocking for me from listening to all of the tapes, everything they did, was not how serious it was. It was how much kind of fun there is in the tapes. Even when you think, oh, the White Album they didn't get on, they're really cracking up most of the time. And it's kind of, you forget that actually they came to the studio to have a good time. And all the other stuff you read about happened in offices and accountants and all that sort of stuff. Most of the studio stuff is great. And that's the thing about music. Music should be fun. If you're learning music, have a laugh with it. And don't sit on your own and do it. Find someone to play with. Because the great thing about music is there's always someone worse than you. I mean, in my case, you really have to hunt them out. But there is. And so show off to someone. Well, the great thing about the internet is the fact you can delve into the world of songs and work out chords. And one of the problems I struggle from is you look on the internet, and quite often the chord sheets are wrong. There's some guy going, if you know the right way this song goes, please write in. You think, oh, that's no good. I can work that out. And the great thing about iVideo tunes is it breaks down that barrier, and you're suddenly being taught by professionals. You're suddenly being taught in a simple way by professionals. It's kind of inspired me. I saw iVideo tunes before I got involved in it, and it's inspired me to going, right, I'm going to see if I can learn the piano better now. And I think that's a great thing. People don't have access to the best people in the world, and now with iVideo tunes they do. You can be taught by some of the best people, from home. And the way it's shot and the way it's done is very simple. If I can understand it, it's very simple. So I think it's a great thing. It's a great learning tool for people. And I think hopefully it'll create great musicians in the future. Hi, this is Giles Martin. I'm here at Abbey Road Studio 2 talking about the Beatles song Help. Help was recorded on April 13th, 1965, out of necessity of a title track of a new film they were doing, which was originally called 8 Arms to Hold You. Then, I think, whoever it was, the powers that be came up with the idea the song was going to be called Help. Or, sorry, the film was going to be called Help. And there was a competition on to write the song. And John ran away. I mean, the thing about John and Paul at this stage, and to a lesser extent George, but George came in later, was the competition as far as songwriting goes. It was constantly one-upmanship. And Help came out of this. Help came with who was going to write the song first. And it was mainly John, who came up with the main riff of the song, and the others came in with the backing vocals and the construction of the song. It was recorded in here, I think probably in in a sort of 3-hour flurry. It was recorded in a number, I think 12 takes. It wasn't until about the 8th take that they even started singing the song. They were just trying to get the backing track nailed. And it was recorded on a 4-track. Funnily enough, for this time, for 1965, it's funny to be in a situation where they put the drums and the bass on one track and George and John on a second track. Quite often at this stage, they put the whole rhythm track on one track and they'd overdub later, but it was a fairly simple song. So the way they did it is drums and bass on one track, driving drums and again sort of, you know, 4's bass mainly, John's acoustic and George playing electric, you know, characteristic sort of, you know, riffs going down. A lot of the guitarists would overdub the arpeggios, the descending arpeggios were played on a 3rd track with the vocals. They sang either around a microphone or on separate mics, probably around a microphone where John sang the lead and Paul and George sang the classic backing to Help. And they did this on one track, and of course, being the Beatles, they then double-tracked exactly the same thing. They never would be tempted to separate. They always recorded their vocals together onto one track. Their voices always sounded naturally good together. It's funny, you listen to any Beatles, you know, whether it's the harmony part of Michelle or Because, where it's 3 of them around a microphone. There's a great thing, the fullness of their voice together was, you know, a fantastic thing. And that's how Help was constructed. In 1980, actually, John Lennon said that it was, you know, even though to begin with he was slightly flippant about Help, and they all were. In fact, my dad recollects Help. I remember saying to him when I was a kid, I love Help, because I think it's a great pop song, it really is. And it's a great pop song because it's not really a terribly pleasant, happy lyric, you know. And my dad goes, oh, Help, it was, you know, to all of them at the time, it was something they were doing for the film. And the Beatles always kind of treated their film slightly as something they were under contract to do. You know, Brian Epstein had committed them to doing, you know, a number of films, and they sort of threw songs into the films, as it were. I mean, Yellow Submarine is a great case in point where they had nothing to do with it until the very end where they were happy with it. And Help was the same thing, but it's funny, I think John Lennon looked back on writing the lyric. In 1980, he said it really was a cry for help. He was going through what he called his Fat Elvis period at the time. He was lost in the world, I guess. For them, the explosion had happened, and they were not at the fallout yet, they were still at the peak of their powers as they remained. But still, it must have been a bit shocking, the changes that went on.
The electric guitar tone for Help is very simple. You just want to use a bridge pickup on a semi-hollow electric guitar and make sure that you're plugged into a tube amp with the clean channel on. And you want to make sure the clean channel is not too clean. It's got to be powerful enough to really sound like rock, but still be clean enough that when you play some of the chords, they don't distort. So the mid-range is really important for that. You want to make sure the mid-range, on a lot of those early Beatles recordings, the guitars had a lot of mid-range. So it's really pretty straightforward. That's the electric guitar tone for Help.
Somebody help, not just anybody help, you know I need someone help.
This is Help by the Beatles. The song's in the key of B minor or A major in various sections, and it's in standard tuning, although it's a little bit flat, so be sure to tune to the tuning video before you get started. I'm going to play the electric guitar part for the intro and then explain it slowly. So really it's just following more or less the bass motion of the chords, which starts out on B minor. So I'm just holding B on the second fret of the 5th string for a whole note, 2, 3, 4. And then in half notes playing the 2nd fret to the open 5th string, B to A, leading down to the G, which you're going to hold for a whole note, 4 beats, which is the 3rd fret on the 6th string, and then leading down to the E, 3rd fret to the 2nd fret, G to F sharp, on the 6th string, into the open 6th string. and letting that ring. And then it's got this cool riff that leads into the verse. You also see that at the end of the choruses as well. And what that is played over an A7 chord. And I've got my first finger on the 5th fret of the 4th string, my 3rd finger on the 7th fret of the 5th string, and I'm going to pick in 16th notes from the 5th to the 4th to the 3rd to the 2nd string, and sequentially just move the chord that I'm holding back 1 fret each time. So it goes from the 5th and 7th fret to the 4th and 6th to the 3rd and 5th, 2nd and 4th. You're just picking the same directions, 5, 4, 3, 2. And as far as the picking goes, I would really recommend economy picking, which is more or less picking in the direction of the string that you're about to play. So you notice when I go from the 5th to the 4th to the 3rd, I'm going this direction, I'm picking down. And as I pick the 2nd string, I'm on my way back to the 5th string. So I'm going to do an up pick on that. Down, 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 up, down, 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 up. And just end with the A string there open to lead into the verse. And that's the electric guitar intro for Help.
When I was younger, so much younger than today, I never needed anybody's help in any way.
On the verses, the electric guitar lays out for almost the entire song. And of course, you could just play the same chords we outlined in the acoustic part: A, C sharp minor, F sharp minor, D, G, A. And of course, you can refer to the acoustic part if you're not familiar with those chords. But there is a section in the breakdown where the guitar lightly plays some higher voicings of those same chords. So A, at the 5th position, my first finger's across the 5th fret on strings 1 and 2. My second finger's on the 6th fret of the 3rd string, and my 3rd finger's on the 7th fret of the 4th string, A major. To C sharp minor, this would be the same C sharp minor we had in the acoustic part, just strummed on the top strings. And then just moving that whole form up to the 9th position. The exact same C sharp minor moved up to the 9th fret there is now F sharp minor. And you can play those just to accent lightly. And that's the verses for the electric guitar on Help.
If you can, I'm feeling down, and I do appreciate you being round.
The electric guitar has 3 specific parts during the choruses, and I'm going to combine the 3 parts into one playable guitar part and then explain the parts individually. So the chord progression in the simple sense as we outlined in the acoustic part is B minor for 4 measures, G major for 4 measures, E major for 4 measures to A7 for 4 measures. And so the bass, or we'll call it the bass walk down on the guitar here, you're going to start on the 2nd fret of the 5th string and you let this note ring for 3 full measures. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you're going to play in half notes B to A over the 2nd fret to the open 5th string. Down to G on the 3rd fret of the 6th string. You're basically going to do the same thing. Let this ring for 3 full measures. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then walking down to the E. 3rd fret, 2nd fret on the E string. Down to the open 6th string for the E chord. Let that ring for 4 measures and then to the A. And so the other rhythm part that happens during that section is you're just playing essentially power chords, where the root and 5th of the full chords, just accenting the 2 and 4 with a snare drum, with a backbeat. So you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you notice how I'm releasing the pressure a little bit with my left hand to kind of cut those short. You don't want to get this kind of sound, 1, where I'm holding the chord down the whole time. So as you hit the chord, you're sort of instantaneously lifting the pressure off with your left hand. You're not actually lifting the fingers off the strings, just cutting them short, like that. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And And you can see when I get to the E chord there, I'm just using these fingers to mute the strings, to mute the sixth string specifically. So the last couple measures there has this neat little riff. If you put your first finger on the 5th fret of the 4th string and your third finger on the 7th fret of the 5th string, and of course this is over the A7 chord, just picking from the 5th string to the 4th, 3rd to the 2nd string. And essentially all you're going to do is just shift the 1st and 3rd fingers back 1 fret at a time. So you're playing the 5th, 4th, 3rd, and 2nd string, moving back a fret, moving back another fret, then moving back another fret, finally on the 4th and 2nd fret there. And that happens in 16th notes. It's kind of a tricky thing to play. And as far as the picking goes, I would recommend economy picking, which is more or less picking in the direction of the string you're about to play. So if you notice in the right hand, I'm going sequentially from the 5th to the 4th to the 3rd string, so those are all downstrokes. Now as I play the 2nd string, I'm about to get back to the 5th string, so I want to pick up on that, rather than picking down, of course, which sets me in the wrong direction to go back and hit that 5th string. So down, 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 up, down, 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 up in the picking, and ending on the A. So that's the electric guitar chorus for Help.
Won't you please, please help me, help me, help me.
For the outro, the electric guitar just plays a very simple part. It's 4 measures long. When the F sharp minor comes in at the very end, you're just going to hammer from the open to the 2nd fret on the 6th string, let it ring for 8 beats, 2 measures, and then just play the open 5th string for the A chord when it comes in. So you get 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's the electric guitar outro for Help. This is the electric guitar performance of Help.
I need somebody, help, not just anybody, help, you know I need someone, help. When I was younger, so much younger than today, I never needed anybody's help in any way. But now these days are gone, I'm not so self-assured. Now I finally change my mind and open up the doors. Help me if you can, I'm feeling down, and I do appreciate you being round. Help me get my feet back on the ground. Won't you please, please help me? And now my life has changed in oh so many ways. My independence seems to vanish in the haze. But every now and then I feel so insecure. I know that I deceive you like I've never done before. Help me if you can, I'm feeling down, and I do appreciate you being round. Help me get my feet back on the ground. Won't you please, please help me? When I was younger, so much younger than today, I never needed anybody's help in any way. And now these days are gone, I'm not so self-assured. Now I finally changed my mind and opened up the doors. Help me if you can, I'm feeling down, and I do appreciate you being round. Help me get my feet back on the ground. Won't you please, please help me, help me, help me.
The tuning for Help is quite a bit flat. the guitars are in standard tuning, but they're just flat. So here's the first string, E. The second string is B. Third string, G. The fourth string is D. Fifth string, A. And the sixth string, E. And that's the tuning for Help.
I need somebody, not just anybody. You know I need someone.
This is Help by the Beatles. The song's in the key of B minor and at certain points in key of A major. In standard tuning, it's just that it's a bit flat, and that's probably due to the tape speed being changed at a certain point. But anyway, be sure to check the tuning video before you get started. And the intro is 8 measures long. It starts with a B minor chord for guitar 2, which is the acoustic rhythm guitar. My first finger is barring strings 1 through 5 at the 2nd fret. I have my second finger on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string, my third finger on the 4th fret of the 4th string, my 4th finger on the 4th fret of the 3rd string. So B minor, and you're going to basically just strum 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's down, 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 up, down. The basic strumming pattern, which you can change around a little bit. It's important to get that beat 2 accent though. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Like that. Go into a G major for the 3rd and 4th measure. So for this, I've got my first finger barred across the 3rd fret. My second finger is on the 4th fret of the 3rd string. The 3rd finger is on the 5th fret of the 5th string, and the 4th finger is on the 5th fret of the 4th string. So it's G major, same strumming. Down to E major, open E major, 2 measures. And then it just goes to an A7 chord. So for the A7 chord, you're just going to play it on 1 and let it ring through the 7th and 8th measures of the intro there, while that cool electric guitar part happens. And that chord is really just like an open A major chord. It's just that you've got the open 3rd string in there, that G ringing in it for an A7. So the whole thing will sound like this. And that's the Guitar 2 intro for Help.
When I was younger, so much younger than today, I never needed anybody's help in any way.
For Guitar 2 on the verse, you're going to play a series of open and bar chords. And the progression itself is 8 measures long, played twice usually. And the first chord is A major. I'm fretting this A major chord with 2 fingers. I have my second finger on the 2nd fret of the 4th string, and my 3rd finger is actually fretting the 2nd fret on strings 2 and 3. So that's A major for 2 measures. The strumming pattern is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Just down, 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 up, down. And again, you can change that around as long as you're in 4/4 and not messing up the accents too much, which are pretty much on 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, just really hitting that 2 of the beat. It goes to C sharp minor, which is a bar chord. My first finger is across the 4th fret on strings 1 through 5. My second finger is on the 5th fret of the 2nd string. My 3rd finger, where's that 3rd finger? There he is. The 6th fret of the 4th string. And then the 4th finger is going to be on the 6th fret of the 3rd string. So that's C sharp minor. Same strumming pattern, 2 measures. Down to F sharp minor. So for this, my first finger is barring across the entire 2nd fret. My 3rd finger is on the 4th fret of the 5th string. My 4th finger is on the 4th fret of the 4th string. So that's F sharp minor. And the last 2 measures are going to be D, which you're pretty much going to just hold for a half note. 2 beats, 1, 2, and then to G, to a G chord. You could fret the G chord with the open 2nd string, or like that with the D on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string, to A for the last measure. So the whole thing will sound like this. And that's the acoustic guitar, or guitar 2, verse for Help.
Help me if you can, I'm feeling down, and I do appreciate you being round.
The chorus is very similar to the intro. You're going to play the same chord progression, B minor, G, E major to A. But the difference is everything's really twice as long. So instead of 2 measures per chord, you're going to play 4 measures per chord. The strumming pattern is going to be the same, the down, 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 up, down. So you're going to do 4 measures of B minor, 4 measures of G, 4 measures of E, and when you get to the A chord, that's where things get a little bit tricky. You're just going to play that A7 chord right on beat 1 of that measure where the A chord comes in. You're going to let it ring for 2 measures. That's while that electric guitar part comes back in again. And then you're going to just go to an A chord. So what I'm doing there is just actually fretting the full A major chord, so not the 7th. I have the 2nd fret on the 3rd string with it. And then as you can see, I'm lifting the 3rd finger off to get the B note in there. That's the 2nd, or the sus2 of this A sus2 chord now. So 1, 2, and so again, that'd be down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up. So the whole thing will sound like this. And that's the guitar 2 chorus for Help.
Won't you please, please help me, help me, help me.
The outro is really a 4-measure sequence that's just going to come in at the end of the last chorus, and it'll actually come in where the A chord would be strummed, the last 2 measures of the last chorus, where you get that. Well, you're not going to do that in the last chorus. Instead, you're going to go to F sharp minor, so F sharp minor bar chord for 2 measures, and just simply end on an A chord and let it ring for 2 measures. So the outro will sound like this. And that's the guitar 2 outro for Help. This is the guitar 2 performance of Help.
Help, I need somebody, help, not just anybody, help, you know I need someone, help. When I was younger, so much younger than today, I never needed anybody's help in any way. But now these days are gone, I'm not so self-assured. Now if I change my mind and open up the doors. Help me if you can, I'm feeling down, and I do appreciate you being round. Help me get my feet back on the ground. Won't you please, please help me? And now my life is changing oh so many ways. My independence seems to vanish in the haze. But every now and then I feel so insecure. I know that I deceive you like I've never done before. Help me if you can, I'm feeling down, and I do appreciate you being round. Help me get my feet back on the ground. Please, please help me. When I was younger, so much younger than today, I never needed anybody's help in any way. And now these days are gone, I'm not so self-assured. Now I finally changed my mind and opened up